Hi, welcome to Box on the Box, Rock and Celluloid, Bot Brat for short. I'm over Box. So one of my viewers requested a ranking albums of UFO, so I thought, yeah, let's do it. UFO's a band I love. So there's actually 21 UFO studio albums, 22 if you count the Salentino Cuts, which is a covers album. There's also a mini album as well, and I had to sort of think about this, and I like round numbers. I'm going to rank the mini album 8 Misbehaving. I've also got like 3 wild cards in there, which one you wouldn't be aware of, maybe the other 2 not, but technically they are or should have been UFO albums. So, okay, I'll start number 25. There's no surprises for this. You know, do you pick UFO's debut album or do you pick Flying? Well, I pick Flying because I think it's about 60 minutes long. So aside from it being pretty awful to listen to, it would be even worse because if you listen to that amount of time on vinyl, the size of the grooves would have been so short. There's not really much you can say about the early days of UFO. The strangest thing is that it just kind of bears no resemblance to what they became with Michael Shanker. Mick Bolton's guitar playing's adequate. These albums are badly recorded. There's quite a lot of distortion, there's no clarity. You know, they in no way compare to the sort of rock music of the time, the sonic quality, and don't even have the kind of quality of a band like Judas Priest's debut on Rock and Roll or Saxon's debut, where they don't quite sound like the band, but there's still some good songs. Some might disagree with me. So I feel a way about Flying at number 20, having UFO, the debut at 24. There's a live album as well. You could... people can make arguments for these. It's worth listening to that from a historical perspective. I remember as a little kid, I went in a shop and found the Flying album. I was kind of fascinated by it. I was like, how do UFO do a 26-minute song? Well, by basically jamming and not writing proper songs. They got big in Germany, popular in Japan. They kept the band going and brought them into the orbit of Shanker. So I'll leave that there. My next choice is Misdemeanor. This is from 1985. This is the album with Phil Mogg and friends. It's got Atomic Tommy on guitar. I think what's bad about this has awful processed drums, Simmons drums. Atomic Tommy M's guitar's kind of flashy in an 80s way, lots of tapping, whammies, things like that. It doesn't really quite fit, but I think really the problem with this is, obviously there's a break for the AOR market, American market, but it's just the recording quality is really bad. I remember I think they're on ECT with this, and it was only 2 years after the split up originally, and it really wasn't a good relaunch. Next up, we've got High Stakes and Dangerous Men. I just think this album comes at a bad time for this kind of music in general. I do think Lawrence Archer was a good way to go. Obviously, he's a big Shanker fan. He plays a Flying V. There is some good songs on this, but it's just kind of lacking something. Shame they couldn't have, there's maybe some Lawrence Archer, someone they could have worked with more. I saw him play with Pete Way, very good player, fitted the UFO thing perfectly, but again, just lacking memorable songs. And I feel the same way about Covenant at number 21. This is their second album they did when they came back with Shanker. That's a weird story. Of course, you got the Walk on Water album 95, then they kind of fall out. And then they kind of tour that in the UK with this album, but play tracks off the Walk on Water. Never quite understood it. Actually, sorry, they toured this album in 2000, which those of you at some of those gigs was awful. Again, just poor production, just not lacking the quality of songs. It just feels like an album for the sake of it. To get Michael Schenker in to go out and do a tour, where he ended up headbutting Spike. But anyway, so number 20. This might be controversial, but I'm going to go for 8 Misbehaving. This is their mini album. I mean, it's got 7 tracks if you get the bonus edition, so it's nearly an album. I actually think they learnt the lessons from production. It hasn't got the processed drums on this. It's got quite a big drum sound. Phil Mogg's vocals are very good on this. The songs are more like classic UFO. Perhaps the odd thing about this is the backing vocals are very overproduced, and it has a lot of female BVs. Nothing wrong with that. I just don't think it's a UFO sound all the time. But between A Rock and a Hard Place, Another Saturday Night, and War of the Worlds, very good. Hunger in the Night, Easy Money. So the songs are kind of short and to the point. Why was this meant to be a demo to kind of advertise to another label? This came out on FM Revolver. Maybe FM Revolver said, look, we'll pay for an EP. I don't know. Awful album cover. But I do think this has actually got some potential, considering what Misdemeanor sounded like. But things went, split up again, and then they got back on High Stakes. It must have been very difficult for Morgan Way in this era. You think about the split in 83. Actually, Pete Wade doesn't play on this album, but you know, you come out in 85, it doesn't do well. You got this, the EP, they got a 4-year gap to 92 with the High Stakes and Dangerous Man. Not a lot of money around then. Okay, my next choice is The Visitor. This is their album with Vinnie Moore. I'm just looking at this. So this is the third time out with Vinnie Moore. I just found this album a little drab. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. Everyone's present and correct. You've still got Phil Moggy. Pete Way's gone by this point. This is to do with touring issues. He couldn't tour the US. Some guy called Peter Pitchell plays guitar. So this was, Pete Way had drug convictions. He couldn't tour the US, and they toured on the previous album, but not in the US, and it just became a problem. Like I say, I'm not, there's nothing wrong with this album. It just doesn't kind of stand out as having a massive amount of quality. It's, it's an album to keep the band going. Okay, my number 18 choice is Making Contact. So this is the last album proper. So I'm just getting up the album here, that's the tracks, but this is the last album proper in the cycle of UFO, Shanker, Chapman era. So they get Shanker in 73, they make Phenomenon, and basically the band carries on going until 1983. They split up shortly after this. I think Phil Mogg sort of has a nervous breakdown in Greece, probably from all the boozing and everything. I think the problem with this album is it's just produced by a guy called Mick Glossop. It's the writing, there's some good songs there, like Diesel in the Dust, You and Me, I quite like, The Way the Wild Wind Blows, and so on, All Over You. But it's just the production's very kind of thin. It's got no punch. It's almost like the band, it almost feels like the band hasn't got any kind of fire in its belly. And this is the last album. The album cover's not great, but it's pretty good. Obviously people find the nudity quite offensive now, but it's kind of, it feels like the end of an era. You've still got like good UFO branding that they established from the Lights Out on onwards. After this, you won't get these kind of cool Hypnosis covers, whether this was properly commissioned, or whether it was just used from the hypnosis stock, I don't know. But it really does represent the end of an era. Okay, but it's worth checking out. My next choice is number 17 is Seven Deadly. This is the fourth album in the Vinnie Moore stakes. I think this is better than the Visitor, probably because they kind of accepted the Pete Way thing's not happening there. Fight Night's good. Year of the Gun. Burn Your House Down's a good rocker. Vinnie's kind of getting more bluesy on this. Again, I don't feel it stands out anything massive, but it is solid. One of the things I find difficult with the Vinnie Moore album is the fact that the tone of his voice has gone lower, but then he's kind of using less range, so sometimes what I'd call the shape and sphere of the melodies isn't as wide as he used to be. So for, any singers out there, he's also always sung in the kind of slightly upper mids to lower mids and upwards, and maybe going a bit higher Phil Mogg, but this is very lower mids and just pushing it to upper mids. So just really a change in the age of his voice. So my number 16 choice is The Monkey Puzzle. So this is the second album with Vinnie Moore. I was quite disappointed with this at the time. I liked the You Are Here album. I thought it was a great idea getting Vinnie Moore in. Bandy Parker came back for this, which was good. So it was all present and correct. You got 4/5 of the classic lineup. But I think the production wasn't as good. I think some things were done remotely with this. Maybe guitars done at home studios and so on. If you listen to the You Are Here album, it's clear it's worked. They've worked on it in the studio, and there's a great organic thing about this. But Hard Being Me is good. Black and Blue, Drink Too Much, Rolling Man, Kingston Town's quite interesting. It's got some good tunes, but it's just that kind of slight drop. Again, terrible artwork. The artwork on You Are Here wasn't great, but it was okay. But it's like a kind of bad UFO Hypnosis cover on a budget. I think it's a shame. I think it's the branding should have been stronger. And now my next choice is Conspiracy of Stars. I know there's a pattern forming here with these Vinnie albums. Again, I think this is better. I think it's good that the band effectively seems like they went out on this, not quite high, but a better album of Rob DeLuca in on bass as a permanent member. I think that really helps things. Run Boy Run, Ballad of Left-Handed Gun, Sugar Cane are good. Rolling Rolling, Messiah of Love. You know, there's some good bluesy hard rock here. Phil, you know, obviously I don't like the tone of his voice as much, but this is what they settled into. Vinnie plays with quite a low gain on this album, which I quite like. Producer Chris Sangaridi is probably one of the last things he did. Great UK producer. The core USA, yeah, probably Vinny's probably done a lot of guitars at home on this, but I think the remote recording and the recording at the regular studio thing works better on this. I'm not massive on the artwork, I've got to be honest with you. Like, I don't like the font on the Conspiracy of Stars. You know, again, these Vinnie Moore album covers weren't totally great. But anyway, that's I'm going to check number 15 choice. So my number 14 choice is Sharks. This is the third album in the Shanker comeback stakes. This seemed to come out and they didn't do any touring, I don't think. Recorded Prairie Sun, clearly Mike Varney's involved in this. Stephen Hart, God, those guys going all over. Prairie Sun Studios going all the way back to those Shrapnel albums of the 80s. I think this is better than Conspiracy. Fighting Man was a track that they kept playing live. Hawaii, nice little instrumental crossing over. Shadow Dancer's good. That's got some interesting riffing in it. Serenity as well. Shanker does some more interesting riffs. It sounds like Shanker is more kind of arsed here. But again, it feels more like a recording project with those three key members, Ainsley Dunbar on drums. Mike Varney plays a bit of guitar on it as well. Actually, good player, Mike Varney. So, you know, a kind of 6 out of 10 album. Again, funny artwork. I mean, you know, funny title. Just, why weren't they thinking more about this? You know, it's the band that came with Obsession, Lights Out, Force It. You know, great album covers, great titles. Wild and Willing and Innocent, you know. Okay, so now is the first radical thing. People are going to be shocked here. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I've hit the wrong thing there. Apologies. That's giving it away. Mogwai. So Mogwai was effectively a UFO album project with Mike Varney, but they couldn't use the UFO UFO band name. Apologies. For legal reasons, but if you look at the logo and everything, it's a UFO album in all but name. I think this is a pretty good record. I think it's more exciting than the ones I've picked before. Why is that? I think Mogwai maybe got something to prove. They get a guitarist in called George Bellis, who is a bit too shreddy for this, but he's a phenomenal player. There's some good tracks on this. Change Brings a Change, that was what you heard the excerpt of there. Fortune Tan, High Wire, Saving It For Myself is a re-recorded version of Mother Mary, maybe not necessary. It's a Game as well. You know, there's some good tunes. House of Pain, nothing spectacular, but a lot more solid, and it's got an instrumental on the end called Totaled, obviously to show off George. So I know people out there will be like, well, why has he put this in? But if you're a UFO fan, you will have checked out this album. And my next choice is, no surprise, is Chocolate Box by Mogwai, and this is number 12. This is an improvement to get a guitarist in called Jeff Coleman, George Bellis was excellent, but Jeff Coleman suits the UFO vibe more. He's got a more bluesy style, he's got great chops, like Vinnie Moore. He uses the wah-wah, kind of in a Shanker kind of way, maybe for this project. Really good, terrible album artwork again. Muddy Skull's pretty good, Jerusalem's really good. Living and Dying, King of the City, Last Man in Space, Whip That Groove. You know, it's good. It's got good songs on it. I think this is, a lot of people really rate this album. I think that's really where I'd put it in. You know, a lot of people think this is a lost gem. So it's worth checking out. Yeah, so again, they couldn't use the name. This is why the Covenant album, I think they did the Covenant album in 2000. Or was it 98? And then Michael's, well, you can't use the name. I'm not sure, but anyway, they had to have Shanker there to use the name, hence that's why Sharks was under the UFO banner, but still using the same team. Okay, so that's kind of the first half of it. The next half of these rankings will get more into the nitty gritty. These are going to be albums you would expect to be here, I suppose. So my number 11 choice is Mechanics, a solid record in the Chapman era. I remember when the song came out, it made number 8, went silver. UFO were at the biggest actually in the UK. Opens with The Writer, pretty good. Something Else, why they've done a cover of Eddie Cochran, I don't know. but Back in My Life, Doing It All For You are good tracks. We Belong to the Night, nice sort of new Wobbum type riff on that. Let It Rain, very catchy, Feel It and Dreaming. This album's a solid 6, 7 out of 10. It's a pretty decent record. I've got Gary Lyons in the producers. I think he did some work with Foreigner on his early records. Good, recorded in the mountains in Switzerland, the Manor in Oxford, Scorpio Sound in London. This isn't a cheap record. Good stuff. And now my next choice is No Place to Run. I'd maybe put Mechanics ahead of this. I've got a lot of problems with this album, and I think this era kind of didn't damage in the States, with people not, with Metal Mickey not being there. But there is some good tracks. I think it starts really poorly, so Mal Centuri, crap instrumental, Letting Go. Never liked that track. Phil's vocals very flat. I'm letting go. Now, the band, I don't think the band plays very well on this album, and I think that's why it doesn't sound great. I don't think George Martin's a rap producer, but, it comes from the source of the musicians, principally. You got Mystery Train, the cover, don't like it. This Fire Burns Tonight, good track. Gone in the Night, not bad. Young Blood, the best track on the album. The band, now, if the band had played as well as they do on this track and sounded as well as they do on this track, this album would have been better. This was actually on Top of the Pops. It's a minor hit. You could get it on red vinyl. It's a really good track. No Place to Run, really good. Take It or Leave It, Money Money, they're okay. And then Any Day, excellent end track. So, yeah, what lets this down is some people love this album. I do like the artwork, although it's not your classic Hypnosis. It's evocative. It's the first time to break out in the era of the new Wobbum, but I just don't think it sounds too great. It hasn't got the songs. Okay, my next choice is You Are Here. This is the debut with Vinnie Moore. I think she's really good. When Dallas Goes to Town, Black Cold Coffee, Wild One, Give It Up, really good. Call Me's pretty good. Slip Away, Sparkle of a Sympathy, Mr. Freeze, I like that. Jello Man, Swallow. Good production by Tommy Newton, solid 7 out of 10. Great guitar work by Vinnie Moore, Jason Bonham on drums. Everyone performs good. Everyone's out to make a statement. We don't need Michael Shanker, and the band proved they didn't. Although I'm not massive into the Vinnie Moore albums, they're a great touring act. Vinnie Moore's a great player, and enabled UFO to carry on. Next one is Walk on Water, number 8. So this is their comeback album with Shanker in what should have been a good time, but wasn't the right time to come out of classic rock, and they left it a few years in early noughties. It would have been better. Really good record. Self-Made Man, Venus, Push the Limit, 3 great tracks. Top of the Bullet, good. Darker Days, very good. Running on Empty, okay. Knock, a lot of fun. Dreaming of Summer, really good, and some good re-recorded versions of Doctor and Lights Out. I think the good thing about this is Ron Neverson have had a bit of money to spend, and he's made a really good sounding record that sounds contemporary but has the authentic sort of UFO vibe. Probably just missing that kind of classic kind of track on the Push to the Limit's great. Next choice is controversial, so this is my other wild card after the Mogwai albums. I'm going to put in Strangers in the Night. Okay, a lot of people swear by this album. I'm putting it in there. Obviously, it's an album we've all got. The reason it's not as high is because I always preferred the studio albums. Those are the albums of the versions I heard first, and I preferred those. I think the other problem with this album is it's only 13 tracks. It's 69 minutes long. Why? There's an obsession-sized hole in this album. Why didn't they put in the Pack It Up and Go recording they had? Why didn't they put in the Ain't No Baby? Or the Cherry. Not that I'm really into that track. They could have ditched that and used On With The Action, which are played in those shows, or obviously that's not off Obsession, or Getting Ready. Michael does some cool solos, but I prefer his studio solos. I also think there may be a better version of this album if you listen to the deluxe edition where you've got all the shows are recorded. I think the reason they chose Chicago is for the Atmos. UFO were big in Chicago and could play at 14,000 people a night, maybe 2 nights running. But I can't help but thinking maybe there's different shows in there. Controversial, I know. I think if you bought this album first and you heard these versions first on this album, this is the one, you'd swear by it more, but I didn't, so that's why. Number 6, Wilder, Willing and Innocent. Easily the best album with Tonka Chapman. You can read my classic album inspection of this. Probably why, it's not quite a classic for me. It probably lacks a really classic track, and maybe that's Shanker touch, but I do think it's a good sounding record. I think the songs are really good. I like it. So that's in there. Particularly couldn't get it right. Next 5, you can see classic album inspection of these. Number 5 is Phenomenon. I think it's a great sort of reboot, a kind of reboot debut with Shanker. I love the mixture of acoustic and rock on this. Tracks like Space Child, Queen of the Deep are really good. Of course, going with those classics like Rock Bottom. Rock Bottom studio solo, still my preferred version to the live version. Next up is Fawcett, number 4. Obviously, they called a lot of the Strange in the Night set from this. And I think, I love this album, but I think that's almost the problem when they played live. You know, they had to do all that Strange in the Night stuff, and sometimes you just didn't get those deeper cuts. Although Fawcett's a great album, it's not the best album. You know, it's got weaker tracks on it. So that's a little frustration with the album, but Shanker's phenomenal on it. There's great songs, and like High Fly's a nice deep cut. So my number 3 choice, this is quite, this nearly made 2, but I'm going to go for No Heavy Petting. I think this album has Natural Thing and I'm a Loser as the 2 classics, maybe On With Action's a deeper cut, and that's probably why it gets overlooked. There's not many classics as the top 2, but it's such a consistent album, really good production. Great Shanker sound on it, great little deep cuts like A Fool in Love, Highway Lady, Can You Roller. I think the other problem is Danny Peyron's keyboards don't quite as gel as much the sound, but I just really like this record. I think the reason it's higher now is maybe a record I didn't know as well when I was younger. It's great. So no surprises for guessing what number 2 and number 1 are, but number 2 is Obsession. Not massive on Cherry, but other than that, I think it's a great record, great sounding record, phenomenal guitar work, really great production with big drum sounds. Only you can rock me, pack up and go, Ain't a Baby. Looking at for number 1, phenomenal. Hot and Ready, some of the best guitar work of the era on there. You Don't Fool Me. One More for the Rodeo, brilliant track, and finish with Born to Lose. If I had a criticism of Obsession, it's maybe a little bit of a mishmash. You know, it's maybe not always as cohesive as my number 1 choice, which of course is Lights Out, one of the all-time great hard rock albums, Taught to Handle, just another Suicide, my favourite UFO deep cut ever, Try Me, beautiful ballad, Lights Out, phenomenal. Getting Ready, a track I really appreciate now, Alone Again, nice cover with great orchestrations that Ron Neverson's commissioned. Then Electric Phase, great deep cut that they did play live when I saw him in '98. And then of course Love to Love, possibly the all-time, or one of the all-time greatest UFO tracks. Had to rush a bit there because I'm running out of time, but that is my sort of 21 albums rank, but also 25, bringing in a round number. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know in the comments. Cheers, thank you.